welcome to Occasional Randomness. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me, as always, my fellow co-host, somebody who loves going on unexpected journeys, Jason Johnson.
Yeah, hold on just a second. I just found this really flashy button. I'm gonna press it. I mean, it can't do anything ominous, right? We're
not,
we're, we're good.
not that button.
Too late. Recording.
You ever watch back in the '70s? It was like what those like live action Saturday morning not cartoons, but like live action Saturday morning stuff. I think it's called Far Out Space Nuts,
Oh no, I hadn't heard of that one.
where it was like two guys were like the cleaning crew on a on a spaceship, or whatever, that was on a planet, and they're loading up, the meals. So like, breakfast, check, dinner, check, lunch, click. I said lunch, not lunch. And then they go off they go off into space.
I don't know, man. That's how you get launched to a space station with a couple of rockets and have to watch bad movies.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Push the button, Frank.
Yeah. Anywho, so on today's little podcast here, we're going to stay exclusively in the Disney Plus ecosystem, and we'll be discussing the final 3 episodes of season 1 of Agatha All Along, which would be episodes 7 through 9, and the first half of Star Wars Skeleton Crew, season 1, question mark, maybe more, who knows, we'll find out, episodes 1 through 4. And our little public service announcement here: if you like what we do, please give us a like or a review, or better yet, help spread the word on various groups and wherever else you can get your hands on. We don't care. We'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's recap the final 3 of Agatha season 1, which sounds like they're setting up for season 2, and I've heard some buzz about it. I haven't really followed and read about it because I didn't want to spoil the ending. I hadn't seen it yet to see if they're doing season 2, but hey, who knows? We'll see.
I'll touch on that at the end. I have thoughts.
Okay.
So,
All right, so we'll just do a little alternate recaps here, and then we'll jump into the discussion. We start off today with episode 7, Death's Hand in Mine. So, at the moment, surviving members that we know of, Agatha and Billy, are continuing along the road and come across a castle. Upon entering the castle, they are garbed in costumes of various witch characters from popular culture and presented with tarot cards and a table. If they don't place the proper cards in the correct sequence on the table, swords hanging from the ceiling fall down, sometimes
talk
almost
about
narrowly impaling them. Yeah.
yeah. They'll eventually get the point of the episode, though.
Yeah, direct and to the point. We get flashbacks from Lilia's first lesson in divination, and that reveals that she has been experiencing her life out of order, which explains her memory lapses and precognitive abilities. After falling through the mud, Lilia discovers that Rio is the personification of death, something Agatha knew all along, who forebodes that her time is coming. She awakens Jen, who's also down there, and after evading the Salem Seven, they venture through some tunnels, reuniting with Agatha and Billy at the castle. Knowing that this trial is hers, Lilia places the cards in the proper order, saving them all. She prompts everyone to flee through the exit, but she chooses to stay behind as the Salem Seven approach. She flips over one of the cards, causing the entire room also to flip over, and impaling the Seven and herself on the swords. And in the last scene, a young Lilia gleefully attends her first lesson in divination.
Which leads us into episode 8. Follow me, my friend, to glory at the end. After guiding Alice's spirit to the afterlife, Rio meets Agatha and agrees to leave her alone in exchange for Billy, who has disrupted the cosmic balance by gaining a second life. Billy and Jen rejoin Agatha at the end of the road, discovering that it's a circle. Billy puts his shoes back on, and the three are transported to a version of Agatha's basement, with grow lights that slowly go out. Jen learns that Agatha is the one who bound her magic and performs an unbinding ritual, regaining her abilities and vanishing, having gotten what she needed from the road. Agatha helps Billy locate Tommy's soul, and Billy places it in the body of a drowning boy. Billy also vanishes, and with the seed from her locket, Agatha grows a flower within a floor crack, completing the trial. She escapes into her backyard, where Rio attacks her. Billy intervenes and gives Agatha some of his power, but Rio orders them to choose who goes with her. Hesitant at first, Agatha kisses Rio and dies, while Rio leaves and Billy returns home. Upon entering his bedroom, He realizes that many of the objects in it match aspects of the road and hears Agatha laughing behind him.
And then we wrap it all up with episode 9, Maiden, Mother, Crone, which looks like a flashback episode, which we cut back to 1750, where we see Agatha giving birth to her son Nicholas. Death/Rio appears to take the baby, but on Agatha's pleas, she relents, but warns that she will eventually take him. Agatha spends the next 6 years raising her son while killing witches, which Nicholas grows to oppose. Together, they create a children's song that would eventually become the Ballad of the Witch's Road and take on a life of its own. Eventually, Nicholas grows sick and death takes him, which devastates Agatha. With nothing holding her back, Agatha spends centuries murdering witches and stealing their powers by conning them with the promise of the road. In the present, Agatha, now a ghost, tells Billy that he made the previously non-existent road a reality with his magic. Billy blames himself for the deaths of Lilia, Alice, and Sharon, but Agatha retorts that she was already planning to kill them anyway, and that Jen's still alive, so hey, he spared a life after all. Billy returns to Westview and tries to banish Agatha, but she resists, afraid of having to face Nicholas in the afterlife. Billy relents and allows Agatha to guide him. After sealing the entrance to the road and recording the names of the fallen, Billy and Agatha set out to find Tommy. The end? Question mark.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so there we go. The end of season 1 of Agatha, with it seems like a direct backdoor ending into season 2, possibly. The quest for Tommy. So overall, what do you think of the series? I know you didn't really care much for the characters, as we've talked about before, but what about the general storyline or anything else you want to bring up?
Yeah, I have to admit, I did really like the twist with the road, that the road was completely Billy's creation and not something that existed before other than, in story. I'm sure that as we dive deeper through our discussions here, but I'll be briefly say I was, I'm not a fan of the villain redemption trend that Disney has going on, and I kind of felt that, you know, they really, I guess they oversimplified Agatha giving herself up to death. In my opinion, like it seemed like an easy resolution that somebody like Agatha would have fought more against. But I think that's an overall problem, as we've kind of talked about in some of these recaps with the 8 episode story shows that has become the trend now with these shorter, just 8 episode seasons. They have to rush the resolution so much, and I would have liked to have seen maybe some of the other episodes get trimmed a little bit so they could spend some more time at the end. But that's usually my feeling of a lot of these shows.
Yeah, or even like push it out to maybe 10. Maybe, eight's sometimes too little, nine. This was nine, but still seemed like it was still, they jammed a whole bunch into that second to last episode.
Yeah,
I'll say 12 is, kind of out of the realm now. That's just not a thing for most places, but yeah.
but see, I missed that. I think the 12 was like perfect because yeah, you could afford a couple of burner artistic episodes in there and still have plenty of time to not feel like, oh, we've got to like, we literally have like 40 minutes to slam the entire conclusion into, you know.
Because like every episode has to be like a major episode. It has to focus on major plots, move things along because you only got so much time. Whereas, like sometimes like the Star Trek stuff, it's maybe like 15 episodes. You have time to have like, a character-centered episode that's not a main character necessarily, or that doesn't drive up a plot, overall arcing season plot. It's just a fun story to have, which they can't really do anymore with these kinds of shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I guess for me overall, I like most of it. The ending though was kind of a little unsatisfying for me. Like a lot of things like they didn't have time to explain or just didn't need or didn't think they had to explain. Like I still have no idea why Agatha was killing witches and draining their power. I guess to get more power. Obviously not for immortality, as they're all living for hundreds of years now, so that's not the problem. And if Agatha's just training other witches' powers, then why aren't other witches doing that too? Like, why is it just Agatha? Like, did she figure something out that no one else has figured out before? Over 1,000 years of witches? I don't, whatever. And then, like you said, like her shift at the end, her redemption, which we knew was coming, because otherwise it'd be kind of a silly story, wasn't clear or evident why she sacrificed herself to save Billy at the end. Like, it just seemed like it was like Billy said like one sentence. She's like, oh okay, like
Yeah.
wow, okay, there's 8 episodes done. Yeah, and then they don't really flesh out the backstory on Agatha and Rio either, like how they meet, how long were they together, did they have agreements or whatever going on. I don't know, but other than those little minor things, It was good. Yeah, not great, but it was good.
Yeah, I'll agree with that overall. I do kind of get the draining of the other witches thing, though. I mean, it makes sense to me that that's the quick and easy path for increasing her power. Kind of the dark side easier than the light side of actually having to put in the work, right? So, and maybe she's the only one that's willing to kill off her coven because I think that's always been a part of it, right? I'm no expert in Wiccan lore or anything, but I think based on the show and what we've seen, there's supposed to be a trust in your coven, right? And even when we saw her in WandaVision, right, she was killed off her original coven and took all their powers, and that was part of it. So I don't know. I can kind of accept that one. I don't know how much of that's me headcanoning though, which I tend to do when I don't have a good answer for shows.
Yeah, so are there other witches out there doing it, and just they're not as powerful as Agatha, so we don't really hear about it, or is it just whatever? But okay, yeah, sure, whatever, fine. That's the story. That's what they're doing. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So, and keeping with the things I did like, I like when they have these episodes centered on that particular character. Like obviously, trials are built in this, as we learn later about the road thing. Trials here are kind of built around individual people. So we got our Lilia centered episode this time. And I always like it when they do something kind of different with powers or abilities. Like in this case, they had a fun take on like being able to see the past and the future. That that person knows what's going to happen because they've already experienced it, but they're also experiencing it out of order. So like she's experiencing the future before it's happened, and then she's back to the present. It's like what I miss, like what's going on? And if they do it right, like they did here, I like when they jump around like they did with flashbacks to prior episodes, showing how some of what Lilia had said or did fit in or made sense after you see it. So like some of the things she says or does, like out of nowhere, made no sense like 2 episodes ago, but now when they kind of show you how that fit in here, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. I don't know if that's how they had scripted it necessarily, because I didn't go back and check each scene to see, oh, okay, that's where this one fit in, and oh yeah, that was her reaction back then, but it's still kind of fun. And I guess just to cap off that episode, our not so big baddies, the Salem Seven, the Nazgul wannabes, all just get killed off by Lilia as she sacrifices herself. So, okay, poof, bye, goodbye, who cares? So, but that kind of does keep with the theme of each witch, except for Jen, that they kind of die after their trial that they deal with is finished. So, they kept with the brand, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll keep agreeing with you here. We've said before that the trials were kind of really neat. We've enjoyed kind of the different aspects of the trials, so this one was no different. I will say, as much as I've made my issue about not liking any of the characters, they did something interesting with this trial in that by showing us Lillian's life, they actually made me like the character. So if I had to pick one out of this group of witches that I thought was a cool character and like you said, a really neat concept, and that I understood when they got done, it was Lilia. And I was kind of frustrated. Like you say, I understand the trend of all of them having to die. They broke it with Jen, so it's kind of annoying that they chose her to be the one they didn't go with. But because I liked Lily the most, but at least they did make me enjoy and like one of the characters through the trial, which was an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, because kind of when she was starting out, it's like, okay, this is the one that can see the future. Okay, yeah, whatever. It's been done
And,
before, whatever. But
and she was a ditzy, annoying character, right? I mean,
yeah,
so you're just kind of rolling your eyes at the things she says, and you wrote her off as not being powerful or necessary, and they showed no, here's what she actually did.
yeah, between like what about half a dozen or more times of like some weird thing she did in episode 3 or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, now it makes total sense. So,
Right.
at the time, you're like, okay, she's just one of those like baddie characters, ooh, whatever, But yeah, it made perfect sense when they show you how it really works.
I feel like she could almost like sub out for one of the Farscape characters, what we complained about a little bit, that is kind of a ditzy witch. But anyway,
Yeah, I don't think we want to try and map Farscape characters to Agatha.
obviously
But
Crichton is Agatha. No, go ahead.
yeah, right.
Anyway.
And Rigel's green, so he's sharing. No, no, that doesn't work. Anyway. All right, then we have our kind of what seems like the ending almost in the next to last episode, where they kind of wrap everything up, except I guess the final stuff I'll talk about here in a minute. But we pretty much wrap up everything in this next to last episode. Jen gets her powers back after realizing that Agatha had bound her and took them away 100 years ago. I guess because she didn't want to kill her and take her power for some reason. Okay, whatever. I didn't get it, but hey, sure, it fits. Okay, fine. Billy, with Agatha's help, finds Tommy's soul and actually a body to put in it by I guess the drowning kid somewhere. It's kind of funny that Agatha says like kids die all the time or something like that. So I guess and kind of also references to her own kid. Although Rio didn't really seem to mention Tommy that much or even at all. So if she's all up in a bunch about Billy having two lives when he shouldn't have, why isn't she also mad about Tommy now? So maybe she will be. Just they didn't want to deal with it this time. That'll be a focal point of season two if it happens. We'll see. But at least, we do get Billy in the full Wiccan costume in this final battle. So hey, there we go. Another on-screen costume, which I think was pretty comics accurate there, unlike other costumes. And in this one, Agatha solves the final trial and later dies. So again, hey, that tracks again, except again for Jen living through her trial. But so
Yeah, which
they're almost consistent. They're 99% consistent.
and that almost consistent actually gives me hope for my hope that they're going to bring Jen back in a relationship with Ghost Rider somewhere, right? Because she's Jen Kale, but we'll see if that actually comes to pass. But that's my hope, right? Is that she still lives and is out there for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to blow lots of money on these miniseries kind of things or series, whatever you want to call them. So, graphics are getting cheaper. So you could bring in Ghost Riders or various ones of them with, flaming skulls and flaming vehicles, bicycle, whether it's motorcycles or cars, whichever one you want to go with. So yeah,
And,
you never know.
and they could always go with the Johnny Blaze post Ghost Rider curse or whatever, and not actually show the animation. Just give a motorcycle rider with a shotgun with hellfire or something. You could
Hmm.
you could play with it a little bit.
Yeah, because
So
that will keep with the cheap version of characters. Just give him the Hellfire shotgun. Yeah, and he
yeah,
and like only like once a time, like every episode he shoots it. So you don't have to do graphics that much. And then we get our final episode where the not like a twist or diversion, but it's more like a kind of like a flashback episode for most of it, where we get some of the backstory on Agatha, and at least all about her son Nicholas and how she lost him. And then yeah, to what we talked about earlier, we found out that yeah, they made up the Battle of the Witches Road as a way to, I guess, entice witches to come out of the shadows and form a covenant with Agatha so they can go walk the road. When really that's not the deal. It's just so Agatha could kill them all and steal their powers, which apparently that's what she was going to do back in Westview at the start of or in episode two. But hey, Billy wound up making the road a reality with his magic. And apparently, as we found out from the last episode, populating it with stuff that was in his room, like all the posters or his little Wizard of Oz character, figures and whatever, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool. And like the Lily episode, I'm not going to go back and watch to see if Agatha reacted to the road being real or not back in that second episode. Like, hey, this is not supposed to be here. Wait, what's going on? So she might have. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'll just give it as a given.
it may kind of explain why she was a little more standoffish at the beginning and not wanting to participate.
Yeah, it does make more sense now that she was just like, I'm not going to bother with these trials. I'm not taking them seriously because this is not supposed to be here. Like,
Right.
but then we kind of get a more comics accurate Agatha at the end because now she's a ghost and she has white hair. So now she's not as in her like 80s or 90s that Agatha in the comics is, but okay, at least now we're getting closer to the comics. So okay, fine, if you're the comic purist. And then at the end, she and Billy come to an understanding, and they set out to find out where Tommy is. So question mark for season two. Sounds like that's what they're leading for.
My understanding, and this is all internet hearsay and stuff I've read at random places, so take it for what it's worth, is that I think their intention was to make a trilogy of shows. WandaVision, this one, and a planned third. Not necessarily that they're going to be like seasons of the same show. So like this isn't like WandaVision season 2 or anything like that. And I don't think the next one will be Agatha season 3 or season 2. But I think it's just like these three shows tell an overarching story. So I guess we'll see. Obviously, it depends on how well this does, who they can get lined up to do it, scheduling, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, wait and see. I guess I, I will say, kind of overall, just to give my feedback on the show, and I won't beat up the characters anymore. I've made that point, I think. but I think overall it just suffers from not having Wanda, right? I think, in my opinion, if they'd have been able to do this before she died and had her kind of come in towards the end to be part of it, or participate in some way, it would have helped the story. I feel like without the hero, this story just kind of didn't work as well as WandaVision did.
Yeah, true. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what the Wanda actress's contract, Elizabeth Olsen's contract is. Like, is she done? Like, she done her, X number of agreed to things and it's over? Again, it's comics. Anything's possible. Anybody can come back from the dead at any moment. So, if they throw enough money at her, I'm sure she'll come back for, you know, season two. But and then get a big family reunion with her boys and her, and can always try to bring back Vision too. He's still his body's still there, right? Just not his real personality or whatever. But who knows? But
I think that's another show that they're still rumored to still be out in development, is the Vision
yeah,
Quest,
some kind of Vision. Yeah, right.
where they're going to deal with him reabsorbing the memories that he got at the end of WandaVision. So
But I wonder if they would take that, like how they did the comics with like the Vision family, like Viv Vision and like that kind of stuff, and go off that way versus bring Wanda in. If they can't, obviously she's not available or doesn't want to do it again.
right.
But who knows? Well, as always with these Marvel stuff, stay tuned. Stuff falls through all the time, and they have to come up with something else to fill the slot. So who knows? Any other overall thoughts or impressions?
No, I think, like you said, the story was better than I was afraid it was going to be going in. I still don't love it. It won't get a rewatch or anything from me, but bonus points for the twists and turns. I like the twists and turns and the trials. I just wish they'd have had a hero, I guess, is what I was missing from this story.
Yeah, because that's kind of the same thing. Like the characters were okay. There's obviously lots of leftover stuff that they could have brought in, but they just didn't want to, or didn't feel they needed to, or had to cut out for time. I don't know. But I did love the trials, like the set designs. Like each trial had its theme, and then that theme had a look to it. Like sometimes it was just like a genre or like a time period, like 70s, 80s, or like witchcraft, like various pop culture witches, like the next to last one. So that was kind of cool and neat, and it's kind of fun to kind of see like little Easter eggs, try and guess like, oh, that's this thing from that episode, or this intellectual property, that kind of thing. So it was fun.
Yeah.
Whoever did set design had a good time doing this series. And yeah, we'll see if there's a season two. There's a definite opening, so who knows? We'll see. All right, so that is the end of season one. Possibly some more to come of Agatha. After the little break here, we'll continue our Disney Plus extravaganza, going through the latest live action Star Wars series, Skeleton Crew.
Because it's so wizard.
Yeah, they brought that back. All right, so Skeleton Crew, season one. You want to start this one off since I started the first one off, the other one?
Sure thing. So we'll jump out with, I guess we'll start with episode 1. Sure.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be weird if we started with
yeah,
episode 2. What is this, Firefly?
yeah, exactly right.
Episode 1. This could be a real adventure. Somewhere in outer space, Captain Silvo leads a raid on a ship. When no currency can be found, his crew member Brutus incites a mutiny. Then we flash to a fairly modern planet of At Attin, where Wim and his friend Neil prefer to take aptitude exams to determine their future. Wim says that he wishes he were a Jedi, despite Neil saying that it would be impossible. Meanwhile, truant students Fern and KB spend most of their time riding a hoverbike around town. When Wim misses the bus, he takes his own bike but falls into a ditch where he discovers what he thinks is a Jedi temple. He is found by a droid who takes him to school, but is subsequently admonished by his workaholic father, Wendell, who tells him that he needs to make up the exam. Wim convinces Neil that the temple to visit the temple with him, with Fern, who's overheard his claim, and KB following as well. The group find a hatch and enter, only to learn that it's really a long unabandoned spaceship. Wim pushes a button that activates the ship, lifting them away. Wendell watches in horror as the ship takes his son and friends deep into space.
Yes, you press the one button, the combination close all the hatches, prep everything, and launch into space button.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you wire everything up, right? You just want one button that's gonna jump you out and to wherever.
Yeah, it's all macros. You press one button, it does everything else. Which leads us, oddly enough, into episode 2, way out past the barrier. The kids meet the ship's pilot, an aging droid named SM-33, who does not realize that his captain is long dead. Fern convinces him that she is now the new captain, and he takes them to a nearby outpost, as At Attin is not on any map. The kids venture through the outpost and accidentally split up, of course, during which Wim uses his lunch money to buy food, only to learn that his currency is considered very valuable. When he tells the locals that he's from At Attin, everybody just laughs at him and tells him that At Attin is the name of a lost planet that holds a hidden treasure. A gang of pirates try to seize the kids by force to enslave them, as pirates do. SM-33 intervenes and tries to protect the children, but is quickly overwhelmed and gunned down. Curtis has the children thrown in the brig, and down there they meet Silvo, who introduces himself as Jod Na Nawud and reveals that he is a force sensitive and has some usable knowledge. Wim, though, believes him to be a Jedi and agrees to work together so they can escape. Jod offers to take the kids back to their ship as long as he gets to come with them.
And then we pick up with episode 3, very interesting as an astrogation problem. On At Attin, Wendell, Farah, Neil's mother, Numa, and KB's parents, Mary and Gary, are told by a security droid that due to the kids going past the barrier, it is out of the jurisdiction of the droids. Jod helps the kids, we've jumped the ship here, escape the brig, but they refuse to leave without SM-33, forcing him to go back and rescue him as Brender Pranick identifies Jod as Silvo. They outwit the pirates and flee. Fern refuses to trust Jod. Wim and Neil are convinced that he's a real Jedi, and KB reluctantly admits that he's their only hope of getting home. Jod takes the kids to meet his friend, Kim, a map expert that he doesn't even trust. Kim refers to Jod as Crimson Jack before revealing that At Attin is among a series of legendary planets that have protected themselves with a barrier. She prints the coordinates, but Jod realizes that she was stalling for the authorities to arrive and forces the kids to flee. Jod finally admits that he's not a Jedi, but agrees that they must work together to get what they want and escape the authorities to their next destination. X-Wing Commander Kent interrogates Kim about the group's whereabouts as she quotes, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you."
And that leads to our final episode of this podcast. So we're at the halfway point. Episode 4, Can't Say I Remember No At Attin. The crew uses Kim's coordinates to arrive at what they believe to be At Attin. However, the planet turns out to be a war-torn version of it, and later they learn that they're actually on At Akron, one of the sister planets. Jod stays on the ship with SM-33 while the kids venture out. They run into soldiers who identify themselves as Troiks, who have been at war with the Hattons, who have stolen their Eopies, which are like little animal things that look kind of like the Gungan creatures that they used to ride. But anyway, Neil befriends a young girl soldier named Haina, whose father, General Strix, insists that the children be treated like adults. Neil does not take very well to the violent lifestyle, preferring a more humane approach. The kids are told that they have to aid the Troiks in getting their Eopies back, but Jod and SM-33 buy them back instead from the Hattons. As a reward, they are directed to the Fallen Sanctum, which oddly enough resembles the Supervisor's Tower on At Attin. The crew find that it contains the coordinates to other similar planets, but At Attin's coordinates have been scratched off. SM-33 reveals that he was the one that scratched them off, but his memory had been wiped. So, in good logic, Fern orders him to remember, and he does, and reveals that At Attin is where the former captain hid his treasure. But then suddenly, SM-33 attacks the group as part of an order from the previous captain. Jod turns him off, and Neil faints after helping save his friends. Alright, so we're halfway through the season. So, overall, high level, kind of, what have you thought about it so far? Any high points, low points? You have any favorite characters yet? Unlike Agatha.
Yeah, so you're going to get a totally different response from me on this one. We're really enjoying this. I've been watching it. We're watching each episode as they come out with the whole family. My 8-year-old watches it with me, which is one of the things I enjoy about this one. It seems to be pretty geared towards the kids, right? It's not just. I mean, I like Dandor, but it's not really a kids show, right?
Yeah, right.
This one's kind of all family enjoyable. And I think I give them a lot of credit for, and I'll dive into this as we keep going. But a good job of the kids being kids. They're not just smaller, fully competent adults. They're kids and they act like kids. And while the show takes some liberties, being a Star Wars show with some of the things you're like, okay, no kid's gonna be allowed in that environment, or that's not how maybe the environment would react to the kids. I feel like the kids still act like kids, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because they aren't like running around with blasters like shooting people and things like that, because that's not what kids do, right? So yeah, they're not like making them like little mini adults, like you're saying, running around. But yeah, overall, yeah, I agree with you. I've liked it so far. All of the Star Wars Disney Plus series have been very good, except maybe parts of the Book of Boba Fett being the exception, which I think we talked about that way back when. But and kind of like what we said before about the Marvel movies and shows, it also does apply here for Star Wars. Like Star Wars can just like be a framework for telling any kind of story. Not it doesn't have to be your traditional sci-fi space opera like Star Wars is, or earlier stories was, but it could be that. It could be like Old West type stories, like we saw with some of the Mandalorian stuff. It could be like espionage, like Andor, or in this case, like a young adult coming of age story, like The Goonies with pirates. And the way they set it up, like in the first episode, obviously I wasn't quite sure where they were going because they have to kind of start out with the traditional Star Wars show, a blaster battle on a spaceship. It's like, okay, well, this isn't about kids. What's going on? It's pirates who overthrow their captain, and then we cut to a planet with kids going to school. I'm like, what? So, which again, the first episode they have to introduce you to the framework of the season, of the characters, where they are, what's going on. Obviously, they're not going to stay there forever. So, but at least they kind of get to it pretty quick, right? So, in the first episode, they're off and running, and even though it was like kids going to school and things, it kept my interest. I mean, I was trying to figure out what was going on and trying to figure out what they were, where they were, when they were. Although Wim kind of being this clueless idiot at the beginning is kind of starting to wear a bit thin as the show moves on, but that's probably like part of his growth path. Like he starts out as a young, naive kid, and he's going to learn how to do things and hopefully not do the boring job he missed his exam for. So, but overall though, it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, but again, part of me likes that because again, I don't want it to be I don't want them to grow and respond in the way we expect an adult to, right? Yeah, yeah. The adult gets the okay, maybe I have to just suck it up at the end of this episode and do a full character about face. They're like, no, kids take time, right? Kids have to grow up, and we're not seeing a 30-minute grow up. We're going to see an either a season wide arc of growing up, or maybe he doesn't yet. I mean, who knows? But you mentioned one of the things I skipped, which was or forgot to mention, which was the pirate opening, right? Because one of the things I love about this show is even it jumped to that right from the crawl, right? The actual crawl introduction was about pirates in uh, the age of piracy, where pirates are painting their starships with specific colors, and we get a little bit of a piracy introduction. And it's really neat to me that it almost doesn't matter at what Star Wars era this show takes place, right? I mean, it does tell us, but at the same time, this show could really take place at any point because it almost exists outside, at least so far, right? The first 4 episodes, it exists outside of the normal Star Wars continuity of effect. We don't really care whether we're still under the Empire or the uh, New Order or what. I mean, we have X-wing, so I guess we kind of have an idea. But other than that, this could be really take place at any point.
Yeah, and so far it's not like that's been crucial to the story, like you're saying. Like we find out later, like what these planets are and where that fits in and whatever. But yeah, so far it's a Pirates of the Caribbean Star Wars version, so
Exactly.
with kids instead of adults. And yeah, I mean, they're kids, right? They're like what, middle school age kids, so they're like 10 years or so younger than Luke Skywalker. So you can't expect them to have like the Luke Skywalker hero's journey, that kind of thing, where he's got this destiny or whatever. It's just kids, trying to get home, and doing whatever they can do to get home. So it's fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll get more into the planets here in a little bit, but yeah, from that first episode, it's kind of interesting that like the whole point of living on At Attin is just to keep the societal machine running, right? You wake up, you go to school, you learn how to do various jobs that you might do later, and then you take your aptitude test to find out what that job will be, and then like Wim's father, kind of do that boring job the rest of your life. Rinse and repeat, generation after generation, right? So is that kind of like, given where this does fit in and what's going on, is this kind of like the ultimate decadence of the old republic? Soulless, bland, and boring. Like we see from other like Coruscant jobs, like those people have in other stories where they're in this giant room of people doing like tabulations, and that's it. Like that's your job every day. You know, I'm sure, we're going to find out what this big secret of these hidden planets or the hidden treasure is at some point in the next 4 episodes, because otherwise, what's the point? But kind of an interesting little slice of life that's not, constant battle and, full of meaning and, ultimate endings kind of thing. It's just life.
So I may be wrong, but I think this is our first insight at any point into a Star Wars subdivision life and how normal families live. I mean, we've seen like some slave kids on casino planets, or Luke Skywalker growing up as a moisture farmer. But as far as like middle class, here's your subdivision, like you say, your boring job, your office worker, your whatever. We really haven't seen a daily life in that character's viewpoint, and this was kind of interesting. Um, probably it's probably not really that, right? Obviously, like you say, we're going to find out what the real deal is with these planets as we go. But it's kind of an interesting to me, and it's a great setting for what I think, like you said, is essentially Star Wars Goonies in space.
Yeah, because we've seen like, being in a city, obviously, Coruscant, one giant city in a planet, but this is like your first like just suburbs, like your Star Wars suburbs.
But even then, we see it like from the Jedi or the counselors or the politicians or your
Hmm.
your upper class Mon Mothmas or something. It's this is your 9 to 5. Can I make my rent? Office worker. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like your dad's busy all day because he's doing his accounting work or whatever it is at the at the job, at the business, at the whatever it is, the government, whatever he's doing, and then you know you gotta get to school, kid. Here's your lunch money, and go, here, make sure you get on the bus. It's just like, yeah.
Speaking of the lunch money, and we may get to this at some other point, but I thought about it when you were doing your recap. Did you notice that at the opening, when they find the credit, it's a square New Republic labeled credit, and when the kids have their lunch money, they're the old credit sticks of the
Like, yeah,
High Republic.
yeah, like rectangular, yeah, like, yeah. So a little change, but yeah. So.
Yeah, just kind of interesting on why those may be more valuable. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out why. Because everybody likes, oh, and Old Republic credits, wow, it's like pristine. It's like they're like coin collectors. It's like, oh wow, it's a mint condition.
Yeah, he broke out the gold doubloons.
Yeah. And when I was watching them take these aptitude tests, I had flashbacks to my own like high school. Did you have the same kind of like aptitude test back in school, back in your day, like when you're deciding what to do after you graduated? Like these tests that ask you all these weird questions, like if you like working with your hands, you should be an auto mechanic, or if you like being outside, park ranger is a great job for you. Those kind of stupid things.
Funny enough, absolutely. Um, I remember I took it in high school, and I laughed because they told me they recommended that I was going to go into poultry management. And at that point, I was already working in IT after in my outside of the school job and stuff. And I'm like, I'm definitely not going into that. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'd already made my career choice in high school, and it was hilarious that they're like, no, poultry management, go raise chickens. I'm like, no, no.
Yeah, because I was, at that point, I had like my first home computer, Commodore 64, shout out back in the day. And I was already doing like bulletin board systems, the forerunner to the internet back then. And I was into, all that kind of stuff. So I was already into like some kind of technical IT thing. And I think most of my hits were like some kind, all the various engineerings, mechanical or electrical or whatever. And but other odd things like, mall manager, things like that. I'm like, what? Like, how did you get that from the questions you asked me? But whatever, fine. But yeah, that's all I picture these guys of like, you should be a janitor. It's like, what?
Except for it's not you should be, it's you will be,
Yeah, it's
which
like
is
this
even
is what you're gonna
worse.
do, and it's like wherever you test out as, that's your job, whether you like it or not. So they're all upset, and they're all trying to make sure they get the right quote unquote questions done on the exam. So it's kind of funny.
And that's what I think is interesting about this is because it's not even high school. This is like you said, they're middle school age kids.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, you're in middle school. Yep, here's what you're doing for the rest of your life. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, so like, what's high school like? Is it just like, okay, so you're going to be an accountant like your dad, so now your high school is just accounting, like how to replace your dad, like. And keeping with the pirate theme here, in the ship that they find, we meet the ship's droid, SM-33, who talks just like a pirate, and complete with a peg leg and one eye, although no eye patch because it's Star Wars, and his eye socket's open, and of course, inside his little brain pan there somewhere is a cute little creature that lives there. Okay, fine. It's cute. It's funny. And again, keeping with the pirate tradition, Fern bluffs the droid and says that she killed the last captain, so that makes her captain, right? And apparently that's correct pirate lore because SM-33 is like, okay, great, you're the captain. So, but he has no way to get them back home as he ain't never heard of no At Attin.
Well, specifically, he can't say that he's ever heard of an no At Attin,
This is true.
which I
So
think is a great
it's
wordplay.
logically
Like,
correct, yes.
yeah, and so when they did the reveal of that, I was like, nice, that was well done. The other one, I don't know if you caught it. I definitely didn't catch it at first. I had to do some watching on this because again we've watched it several times now at this point. But SM-33, if you write it out, is Smee, as in first mate of Captain Hook, Mr. Smee. So
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't catch that because I haven't probably done Peter Pan or read the books in like forever. So yeah.
yeah, benefit of younger kids here. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, Smee, gotcha. That's pretty good. So good droid name there, SM-33.
And of course he talks like a pirate. So yeah, that's just hilarious to me.
Aye.
I'm like, why would you? Okay, fine, whatever. It's funny. Go with it. I don't care. You know, droids and Star Wars are fun and eccentric, and here we go. So that's what you get. And then we cut into all the fun things that happen in young adult shows that make no sense, but like you said, you just go with it. Like you said, kids wandering around all by themselves on a pirate station, and no one seems to care whatsoever.
Except for the one lady.
Yeah, except one person's like, oh my God, kids. But hey, pirates have families too, right? Uh,
Not these.
yeah, not some of these guys. And then Wim starts tossing around his lunch money of pristine Old Republic credits, and everybody's like, "Hey!" So- and of course, because it's pirate stuff, you get thrown into a brig, and they meet what Wim thinks is a Jedi, who offers to let them escape, but they have to take him with him. And they're like, "Well, how come you couldn't escape before?" It's like, I got no ship. Where would I escape to? It's a good point.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. So far that we've seen so far, what do you think about Jod slash Silvo, as we find out later? That's the same guy.
Crimson
Is
Jack. Yeah.
yeah. Is he a failed Padawan? Probably not, because he probably would have been killed by Anakin. Maybe more like a youngling force sensitive that just wasn't either powerful enough to attract the Empire's notice or Jedi's notice to be trained, or maybe just kind of grew up and kind of figured out how to use some skills on his own, or maybe, I don't know, training away from Coruscant before it fell all apart and got hooked up with pirates later. I don't know, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, there obviously has to be more to him than what we see, right? No, I'm gonna go with the a force sensitive that just never got picked up. Either maybe we don't really know his age, but maybe he either escaped the notice or came about right after the fall of the Jedi and didn't get tested. I think he's obviously got enough skill to do some force tricks, right? But I don't think based on his moral code that he ever had any formal Jedi influence. So I'll go with that.
Yeah, because he's a pirate and he was kind of ruthless, and they're out there doing pirate things of mowing down innocent ship people and had no problem with that. So yeah, he's not necessarily the light side force user. So-
No, I think he would definitely fall into the gray Jedi area, right? So
and he's more self-centered, obviously, because he wants to get out of jail. He wants to get away, and now that he's figured out these kids have the secret treasure somewhere, he wants the treasure. So he's all greedy and wants stuff, and at this point, he wants to share that treasure with anybody, like his pirate crew, because he doesn't have one anymore. So,
yeah, so definitely your Long John Silver stand-in.
mhm. Yeah, keep with the pirate theme going. Yeah. So they escape, get back to their ship, but of course, oh, we left somebody behind. No, we didn't. Yeah, our droid. Who cares? No, you go back and get him. Okay, fine. So he goes back and gets them pretty much without notice and without any kind of fanfare. Although he did run into somebody who knew him before, which now we know he's the former pirate captain, which of course you kind of figured, but at least now they tie it up into a bow here. And we got kind of a funny escape scene, escaping from the pirate space station by trying to get their ship away, and a really, really strong fuel line that really tears the whole place up, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, they made that out of some strong stuff, and we get a jump to hyperspace really close to the outpost, which was nice. I did enjoy the scene where he was turning on all the droids, though. I do have to mention that, because all the droids trying to react as he powers them on. Are you SM-33? Nope. All right, next. Nope. Are you
Yeah.
SM-33? Nope. Okay. So
And
obviously
all the
SM
little quick
droids are not.
droid personalities come into play. It's like, no, you're not, definitely not him.
Yeah, yeah. But obviously SMs are not a known, like, you know like R2 units where you know what an R2 looks like. Evidently SMs were not a known droid platform. So
Yeah, because we have no real clue how old like that ship is. Because even the ship they don't recognize. So yeah, the droid's a different model. The ship's a different model that they haven't seen or isn't popular anymore. So yeah, how long was it buried under on At Attin, right? We don't know.
yeah, definitely antiquated.
And of course, as the way these stories work, Judd knows somebody who might know where At Attin is. Of course, yeah. Guess he never really bothered before because it's just a legend. Who cares, right? But now maybe it's not, right? And we learn it's one of several planets, each surrounded by a barrier for some reason that will hopefully be explained later. Otherwise, what's the point? And of course, like good pirate stuff, there's no honor among thieves. And Kim, again, love these names. It's just regular people's names that they just make spelled funny if you looked at the spellings. She's stalling for time for the authorities to come and arrest Judd. And again, Kim's cool. It's like another Star Wars alien you've never seen before. It's like, now it's like, what if an owl could talk and run around? Okay, cool, fun. That's kind of fun. And then they escape in a dramatic escape scene. And of course, because why not? It's Star Wars. Jod tells Fern and Wim to get in the turrets and start shooting at the ships. Probably knowing again, because it's a kids show, they're not going to actually shoot them down, and because they have no clue what they're doing, they're just going to throw up a hell of a blaster fire and hopefully scare the X-wings away, right?
Right, because the X-wings even mentioned that they know the kids. There were kids and they were holding back. So that's a plus for the kids. As far as why they managed to escape, but also, it's a good thing that they don't actually luckily hit a pilot. With a random shot, because that would be tough to live with, right? You killed an X-wing pilot, so.
Yeah, because they've been trying to go out their way of not having the kids again, like we said before, doing adult things like killing people and shooting people. It's kind of more like just like the fun comedy, like oh, I'm playing a game, who shoot, pew
Yeah,
pew.
surely we're not going to throw them into some war zone and make them fight in some kind of warish post-apocalyptic hellscape, right?
I know that would never happen. And of course, episode 4, they arrive at what they think to be At Attin from Kim's research, but all the buildings look the same, but they're all destroyed or run down. So it's kind of okay, interesting. It's one of these other planets apparently. And of course, in keeping with the good budgeting, it's a good reuse of sets they already built. Just make them all a little rundown and throw some debris around the floor, and hey, look, it's a rundown planet. So save some budget there. Good job. And yeah, like I said, this is your post-apocalyptic theme planet with your typical two warring factions fighting for control, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
They were the Hatfields and McCoys. I mean, the
Yeah, right.
Hattons and the Troiks. Excuse
Hmm.
me, I
Right.
misspoke.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like And the leader of the faction, that the kids get hooked up with, wants them to get all trained up to fight. We need more able-bodied soldiers, and everyone gets a gun, and also to get them to go first and not get his own people killed. So smart, good job. You know, Neil's not that interested in shooting things. It's just he's the pacifist. All the other kids think it's kind of fun, and they get to do some things. And, wow, check out this big gun! Boom!
Laser
He,
tag.
he falls backwards when he shoots the big gun. So fun stuff, whatever. But yeah, that's not Neil's thing. He kind of not falls in love, but he kind of gets attached to the daughter of the leader of the clan, which is this is nice. Some nice little scenes there of kids growing up and talking, and what things could have been, if they weren't on a war-torn planet and that kind of stuff. And
As happens.
yeah, and of course, the four of them are out there in front in this foggy battlefield to go get their cattle back. I mean, their opies back. Okay, so we got cattle rustling. See, it's all old west, post-apocalyptic. It's all here. Which, of course, that there wouldn't be a fight because, again, the theme, that's not the deal. John just shows up and says, "Oh yeah, here's your stuff. I bought it from the guys. We all good? Let's go."
Yeah. So this was the part that I felt, was a bit rushed. If I'm going to pick on the 8 episode arc, and maybe I'll say this again as we get towards the end. Personally, I have a good headcanon on some of this. Like, for example, I think that the kids were so hopeless at fighting when they were doing the training that's why the leader decided they would be good for fodder. and put them out front. But I would have liked to have that said. Things like that, where they could have explained a little bit more about the world, because I do think it's an interesting take on, why do we have a battle going on? Why are we fighting over cattle every day? What happened to society to get it down? Obviously, they have contact with other worlds, so it's not like an isolated world, but they still choose to act in isolation, and I think that's interesting. I would like to have it explained.
Yeah, because if Kim said that each planet was surrounded by a barrier, each one of these, however many there were, we learn here in a minute, we'll talk about. But yeah, obviously this barrier is down because they're used to people coming from other planets. So yeah,
Yeah, because they trade hides. So
yeah. So how did it get? How did the barrier fall down? How did the society become, destroyed? Whatever. We don't know. Will
yeah,
we know later? Who knows? Does it matter? Again, who knows? We're not sure yet how this fits in. But
yeah, and how did they get French influence? But anyway, go
yeah.
ahead.
And where'd the guns come from? If we don't see any guns on the other planet, anyway. And then yeah, finally they get to the supervisor tower or the whatever they called it, the forbidden place, whatever. And they learn that there's a bunch of planets just like this one and At Attin, and they all have the coordinates, except of course for At Attin, which were destroyed by and SM-33 says, yeah, he did it, but he doesn't know why he did it. So he remembers that he did it, but not that he was told not to tell anybody about it. And of course, Fern in awesome kid logic says, well, just tell, I order you to remember why. Okay. And he does, because why not?
Which we did see her do with her own droid
Yeah.
in the
So
first episode, so it was a nice callback.
yeah. So it's nice that, kid logic. I did it to my droid, therefore I can do it to this droid. And his old captain ordered him to wipe out the coordinates and forget about it because he hid a treasure on Attin, supposedly. And then the next order goes off, and SM-33 tries to kill them all to keep that secret. Before, of course, Jodge rushes to the rescue and turns them off. So at least we get more details on what's going on. Obviously, the biggest question here is what do we think this treasure really is? So it's not the ship because no one seems to care about it. So did the captain bury something on At Attin or hide something there, or is it something that was already on At Attin? Not really sure yet. But kind of does go along with the theme of all these planets being like hidden away behind energy barriers. Is it like not visible? Like, Attack of the Clones, where like Kamino was just not there. Like they hid it from the records, right? Something like that. All these planets, or at least these two anyway, seem to have the exact same buildings and the exact same places and the exact same purposes. So like what we have like cloned planets now? Haha.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that all those special planets that the Kim, the owl person, had on their map are identical, and so because they just ended it up at Akron instead of at Attin, they just have to find the one, the destroyed coordinates for at Attin. I think that, to answer your question about is it something that he took there, I think it's what he was looking for. I think the captain. I think that the planet itself is going to be the treasure, but we don't know why. What was special about these jewel planets, right? That were set up. So that'll, I think, be the big mystery that we have to figure out some point in the next 4 episodes, is what made these planets special with their barriers and stuff already. What's the treasure of the subdivision, right? Um,
Yeah, which is that really like the treasure? Is the treasure the planet itself? Like it's a nice, calm place away from all the insanity of Clone Wars and Republic senators and corruption and all kind of stuff? Is it just like this? Is the planet itself the treasure of just
yeah,
being
maybe,
normal?
well, or maybe it was a societal backup, right? So if we know we're going into the Clone Wars and we're dealing with all this possible destruction and death, would you create a place where society's backed up, so that if everybody else got wiped out, there's still a residual copy of society to rebuild?
Yeah, because you kind of see that's where it's kind of going, right? That if the more you think about it, it's not going to be like, oh, this planet is like, the old Republic treasury, and there's, a quadrillion, New Republic credits lurking in, somewhere. It's got to be just like a an abstract kind of treasure, like, where a place where people can be loved and grow up with a family, that kind of stuff.
And have your job dictated anyway?
Yeah,
No.
right. And do the same boring job every day for the rest of your life.
So maybe it's a torture camp. No. So here's where I'm going to throw out my one. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, because we are still early, only halfway through. But here's my problem with the whole setup at this point, right? We've got all the coordinates in this tower are there except for the ones for At Attin. the droid destroyed them on the previous visit, right? So if all the planets are the same and all of them have this tower, why don't we just pick another one, go to it, and get the coordinates for At Attin there because the droid didn't destroy them there
That we know of, right?
that we know of.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe they went to all the others and destroyed them. It just seems, I don't know. We skipped over that logic part, right? Like let's rule out some other planets, but it's like, oh nope, we're lost because we don't have the directions.
Yeah, or we'll do was it KB with the cyborg visor thing? Maybe she'll like look at all the coordinates and be like, oh, well, if you map them out, it's like, okay, well, it's this pattern and it should be here, right? So who knows,
Yeah,
right?
I guess we'll figure out when we pick up next time.
Yep. So yeah, so anything else to talk about this first half? I've liked it so far. It's like we said before, it's kept my interest. It's fun. It's not your deathly serious Star Wars. It's not part of the overarching puzzle piece of how does this fit in with what we've seen before. It's just kind of its own little thing and about a bunch of kids just doing kid things and in a Star Wars way. So it's fun.
I, I'll say that for what they're going for here, I think they're very successful. I think at this point, I've seen it with my kids 3 times each episode of these 4 episodes, and I know that my youngest has watched it by himself at least twice without me. So I mean, it's definitely appealing to the younger audience, which I think is something they were after to get Star Wars out there, right? So
Yeah, it's a way to grab the next generation of fans and hopefully Disney Plus subscribers in the future.
exactly, gotta keep us coming back for something.
Got to join the Disney money train, got to jump on there. That's the real treasure. The Disney profits, that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, they did just increase my subscription, so yep.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. So, on the next podcast, as you know from listening to other podcasts, we do a Farscape and something else usually. So, we'll be back to that pattern next time. We'll do the next Farscape episode in our ongoing series of Farscape, which will be, if you don't remember, season 4, episode 11, Unrealized Reality. We won't bother to repeat our guesses on what that title might mean. We did that in the last podcast, so feel free to go back and listen to that if you forgot. And we will wrap up Skeleton Crew Season 1 by the time we do the next episode. The remaining episodes will be out for Skeleton Crew, which again is only 8 episodes. So hopefully they don't pull an Agatha and kind of just jam it all together in these last 4. Hopefully they had a better flow, which Star Wars seems to have a better flow than Marvel stuff for the most part. So hopefully they carried that forward with the series. And with that, we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.